What if I told you that one of the greatest minds in human history was once labeled a failure? A boy who didn't speak until the age of 3. A student his teachers thought would never succeed. A rebel in school. But behind that quiet face was a storm of questions. Questions that would change how we see time, space, and even the universe itself. This is the story of Albert Einstein. Not just the genius you see on posters or textbooks, but the human being, the thinker, the dreamer, who dared to see the world differently. Einstein, from misfit to genius who changed the world. Part 1. An unlikely beginning. On March 14, 1879, in the city of Ulm, Germany, a boy was born into an ordinary Jewish family. His name was Albert Einstein. But from a young age, Einstein caused concern for his parents. He spoke late, he didn't form full sentences until nearly age 3. Some people whispered that he might not be normal. Even some doctors thought he had developmental issues. In elementary school, Einstein didn't stand out. In fact, teachers said he was lazy, uncooperative, and introverted. The only subject that sparked his interest was mathematics, not just numbers, but the beauty of abstract ideas. Part 2. The boy who loved light. At age 5, Einstein's father gave him a compass. The tiny needle that always pointed in the same direction fascinated him. What force was guiding it? Einstein became obsessed with invisible forces, like gravity, magnetism, and light. By age 12, he had taught himself Euclidean geometry and was reading advanced physics books. But school remained dull and suffocating to him. Einstein hated the way it forced students to memorize instead of understanding. One teacher once said, "This boy will never amount to anything." Part 3. The college reject and the patent clerk. At 16, Einstein failed the entrance exam to the Polytechnic Institute in Zurich, but the admissions board saw promise in him and allowed him to enroll in a preparatory course. After graduating, instead of being offered a teaching job, Einstein was ignored by professors, perhaps because he didn't worship them like other students did. He ended up working at the Swiss Patent Office, reviewing invention applications. But in that quiet, boring job, Einstein silently launched a scientific revolution. Each night, he read, scribbled notes, and thought about the big questions. Is the speed of light constant? Is time really absolute? Part 4. The Miracle Year, 1905. In 1905, at just 26 years old, Einstein published 4 scientific papers that later became known as his Annus Mirabilis, Miracle Year, Photoelectric Effect, Light Behaves Like Particles, Photons, Foundation for Quantum Physics, Brownian Motion, Proved Atoms Are Real, Special Theory of Relativity, Space and Time Are Relative. The famous equation equals m squared, energy and mass are equivalent. Suddenly, the world started asking, who is this Einstein guy? Part 5. The Man Who Changed the World. Just over a decade later, Einstein became a university professor and won the Nobel Prize in 1921. Surprisingly, he didn't win it for relativity, but for the photoelectric effect, because relativity was still too radical for many scientists. Einstein traveled the world, inspiring students and advocating for peace, free thought, and against racism. He wasn't just a genius, he was a moral voice in a troubled world. Part 6. Darkness and Responsibility. In the 1930s, as Nazi Germany rose to power, Einstein, being Jewish, was labeled an enemy of the state. He fled to the US and never returned to Germany. Though deeply committed to peace, Einstein wrote a letter to US President Roosevelt warning that Hitler might build an atomic bomb. That letter helped launch the Manhattan Project. Later, Einstein regretted his involvement. He said, "Had I known the Germans would not succeed in building an atomic bomb, I would never have written that letter." Part 7. A Man for All Humanity. In his final years, Einstein lived quietly in Princeton, USA. He declined the offer to become president of Israel, wore the same sweaters, let his hair grow wild, and walked to work. He kept searching for what he called a theory of everything, a way to unify all the forces of nature. He never finished that dream before dying in 1955, but he left behind an immortal legacy. Closing. The message he left behind, from a child once labeled a poor student, Einstein became the man who transformed science forever. Not because he memorized facts, but because he never stopped asking questions. Imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination encircles the world. Albert Einstein. His story teaches us, You don't have to be the best student in class to change the world. Follow your curiosity, even when others don't understand it.